passed it.
Oh, I have one. Go. They told me they want me to recite the majlis for Imam Hussain tonight at the end. So do you want to just turn the lights off when I recite?
Okay, and the Masai?
For Azza, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll Masai at the end. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن علومك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been discussing the Islamic worldview of Tawheed and what that entails for us. How we can practically begin to apply that in our lives so that we can look at the world through an Islamic lens, a sacred lens, where many of our questions begin to be answered. Usually, the lens that we look at the world, that we look through to the world, is not usually that sacred lens that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended for us to look through. Everything that we do, everything that we interact with, all the characteristics and attributes that we experience come from one single source. You and I come from one single source. Love, beauty, knowledge, power, life of all of us and all living things and unliving things comes from one single source at one time. Meaning, you and I were intended from the very beginning, created at the same time that the Prophet was created, and the worlds above this world was created. Everything was intended from the very beginning. Your children were intended, your parents were intended, you were intended. When we look at the world through that lens, we begin to understand what it means to be a manifestation of Allah's names. That all of this comes from that one single source. When everything is said and done, you want to matter. You don't want to not matter. Like Imam Ali ﷺ said, he would be patient in the punishment, but he cannot be patient if Allah turns away from him or is separated from him. We don't want Allah to turn away from us. So we want Allah's attention. How can we grab God's attention? We want God to look at us. We must have a mission statement. Don't you think that there's something wrong with someone asking you what your mission in life is and you not having an answer? Don't you think that it's strange that some people go through their entire lives and live 70, 80 years on this earth and they still don't know what their purpose is or their mission is? And this is a very common theme. We see it in all the Disney movies and everything else, that someone's looking for their purpose. I want to know my purpose. I want to know what it's for. I want to know what it's about. Yeah, we should. We do. We have to have a mission statement for ourselves as individuals, at the very least. And if we're married and have children, we have to have a mission statement for the family. And this is actually a very good family exercise for people to have. When you sit down, husband and wife, father and mother, and sit down with the children without having to feed it to the children, but to ask them from when they're young, what do you want our family to be about? Give me a sentence that can explain what our family is going to be about. What's this family's message? And then as a community, this community, for example, what is the message of this community? Is it the same message as the mosque down the road, or the mosques in London, or the mosques in America and Canada and Australia, or other mosques in the East? There has to be a mission in each place, in each time. It changes. But we have to be conscious of that mission, because if we're not, then we're just fluttering around. And if you don't have a destination, you're never going to get there. It's very logical. If you don't know where you're going, you won't arrive. And you're living life already. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ Man is at a loss of what? Wal asr. He swears by time. Your capital in life is time. It's not money, it's time. And the catch about time is that it's always dwindling. There's no pause. You can't save time. Whether you use it wisely or not, it's going to be used. From the moment you were born, your clock has been ticking. طيب, if the clock is ticking anyway, then you want to make sure that you're conscious about where you're going. Most people are not. So you have to have a mission statement for your community. As a community, we need to know what our community is about. What's this specific community's purpose and message? What's the mission statement? If you don't know it, I don't know it, I'm not from here. I would like to know it. I'll ask the brothers tonight if there is one. If there isn't one, we have to make one. We have to get together and talk about it and make one. But at the very least, without relying on anyone else, without relying on the community, and without relying on a spouse and children, I'm asking you now as individuals, because you don't need anyone else for that. What's your mission statement? And that's not an easy answer to produce. So there are ways that we can do this. And the main two faculties that we've been using in order to understand how to come up with our mission statement has been the faculty of the intellect and the faculty of the fitrah, what I've been calling the mind and the heart, the aql. Those are the two things that we're going to be using. So we have to have values. The values will allow us to know our mission statement. Because when I say mission statement and you think, you don't know where to begin, and it might be an overwhelming thought, but there are steps we take in order to come up with the mission statement. So there are values. Each one of us has values in our lives. And our values differ. Someone might have the value of family, of knowledge, of love, of faith, of wealth, or whatever other value someone has. Everyone has different values. A very important value for me, for example, is respect. Respect is very important for me as a value. So that's definitely going to be taken into consideration when I assess what my mission statement is. Because the mission statement is going to be the compass which directs you to acquire God's names whilst you're here. That's how you'll know where to go. Are you going to commit to which name, first of all, and prioritize? So, since we're speaking about the mind and the heart, those two values of knowledge and love, that's what we have been covering. And everyone has different values, and everyone can prioritize them differently. Maybe all the values that I mentioned are your values. That's great. But then your priorities in terms of the values differ. Prioritizing those values will allow you to know your mission statement. But because I've been speaking about mind and heart, I want to begin with the value of knowledge. And if we don't get to the value of love, that's okay, because I've been speaking about that the past few nights. But the value of knowledge is the very beginning. So depending on how high up on the value list this value is for you, will be how likely you are to acquire the name Al-Alim, the knowledgeable. Allah knows all things. Allah is Al-Alim, the knowledgeable. In fact, Allah is not only Al-Alim, Allah is Ilm. He is knowledge. Because if you say Allah is knowledgeable, what's He knowledgeable of outside of Himself? Is there outside of Himself? It's His creation that's outside of Him, if you want to say outside of Him. So what's Allah knowledgeable about? Himself. So not only is it Ya Alim, Ya Ilm. So when you receive knowledge, you're receiving something very godly, that we don't often realize how godly and sacred it is when you receive knowledge. That's why these gatherings, when knowledge is given and knowledge is received, is so loved by the Ahlul Bayt. And why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam Always praise for those that reignite the remembrance of the Ahlul Bayt, because those are always sessions of knowledge, which means it's a session of dhikrullah, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali, as we know, used to feel very lonely in this world, because he could see what no one else could see. And he used to look for those men with chests that can hold secrets that they share. And there weren't many of them. And when they would ask him for more, he would only give as much as the person can take. That's why Imam Kumail would tell him, tell me. And the Imam would give Kumail as much as Kumail can handle. And Kumail would tell him, tell me more of your secrets. And the Imam told him, Ya Kumail, what sprinkles in you overflows in me. You won't handle this. And he means it, because you know, if he says it, he can say it. And Kumail doesn't understand it. He didn't receive it. Then what is said is cheapened. So the Imam won't say what the recipient cannot handle unless he has a reason to do that. If you take a small cup to the ocean and you take as much as the cup needs, as much as the cup can hold, can you blame the ocean for not giving you more? This is your capacity. And now we'll be speaking about the capacity from here on to the 10th night, inshallah. We want to increase our capacity of what we can take, because what we're taking, if it's ilm, it's very godly. It's literally the name of God that you're acquiring. Right now, what we're doing right now is indeed that. Tayyib. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all around us, very present right now in this session. And if our hearts are sincere and pure and open and lack those diseases, then we're going to receive some of that blessing. And you'll see what I mean by that. It's not going to be from my words. My words are nothing. You'll see what I mean by the end of the lecture. So Allah is present with us right now. And what we are disseminating, we are hoping we connect to Him through that knowledge, that pursuit of knowledge. Imam Ali wanted to give those secrets. But if they don't understand, how can He give it to them? When Allah created Adam, and then He taught Adam the names, the angels said to Adam, why are you creating this creature? The angels that had been there for thousands of years. Why are you creating this creature, Ya Allah? When this creature has free will and the ability to disobey you, and it will cause bloodshed and injustice on the earth. What does Allah respond to them? In the Quran, what does He say to them when they tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, I know what you don't know. Then He told Adam the names and He said, أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ, tell them the names. Adam spoke the names. The angels didn't understand though. You know what the angels said? لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. We have no knowledge of this. We have no knowledge except what you taught us. So we don't know about this. طيب. A lot of the time, my brothers, my sisters, we are like the angels. Ramadan right now, reading Quran, we finish, but we're the same. After we finish, we pray salat, we're the same. We fast, we're the same. لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. طيب. That means Allah is the teacher and we want to be taught. So the person sitting on the minbar is not the teacher, and the one wearing the turban is not the teacher, and the one in the front of the classroom is not the teacher. Allah is the teacher. All the person does on the minbar or in the classroom or anywhere else is provoke your capacity. That's it. They provoke your capacity. They test you. If your heart opens up, Allah begins to teach you. And it doesn't make sense logically, because it's not logical. It's a name of God coming to you. We don't want to be in the situation where we're always saying, La ilma lana, la ilma lana, la ilma lana. We want to say, Allamtana. We want to say, you taught us. I know this because you taught me. We want to be able to acquire the secrets. That's why a lot of the time we hear amazing hadith of the Ahlul Bayt, but it might not move our hearts. Because la ilma lana. So we ask Allah to teach us. And that means each and every one of us here must prioritize the value of seeking knowledge. You'll notice in Islam, there is a great value and focus on seeking knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you work with your hands. It doesn't matter if you're a housewife. It doesn't matter if you're at university. It doesn't matter whatever you are, however old you are. You must keep seeking knowledge. It's not about going to Hawza. You must have knowledge as a priority when you come to write your mission statement. It has to be. That's the path of Islam. It is the path of knowledge. Because knowledge is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Comes from Him only. So this is a pursuit for all of us. From the cradle to the grave, there must be a pursuit of knowledge. So now, as we consider our mission statement, one must think about the priority of knowledge, the value of knowledge, and how often do I come to read or to learn? Do I wait for Ramadan to sit down in a gathering or Muharram? Or is it a consistent daily, weekly engagement for me? If it isn't, then your capacity is not being provoked and you will not be taught. Because the book is not going to teach you. The book's going to provoke you. It's going to give you a chance to receive that knowledge. So you must give it time. Whoever we are must give time. If you want to give the best time, starting from the best, if you want to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like a rocket, you dedicate 3 hours a day to that. Whoever you are, to learning. If that's hard, it's hard for a lot of us, 2 hours. It's hard, 1 hour. Half an hour. You go like a turtle in half an hour, but you still go. But if we're not going at all, there's a problem there. The mission statement is going to have something lacking when the value of knowledge is not there, because that's a huge part of your mission as a human being on this earth. Huge. And it is the lunchbox that you will take with you to the next world. Because the next world, there's no more seeking knowledge. What you took with you, that's what you live with. In the next world, you can contemplate and increase. But you contemplate upon what you acquired here. So you have to gather your luggage and go. Knowledge is the gathering of luggage here so that we have enough material to contemplate upon there. Unwan al-Basri. Unwan al-Basri was a 94-year-old man who lived in the time of the 6th Imam. But he was a student of Malik ibn Anas. This hadith of Unwan al-Basri is a hadith that the mystics always carry with them in their wallets, in their pockets. It's reported that Syed al-Qadi, the great Arif Billah, the teacher of Sheikh Bahjat and Allama Tabatabai, used to always have this hadith with him. The hadith of Unwan al-Basri. Unwan was a student of Malik ibn Anas. You know Malik ibn Anas? He's one of the heads of the 4 madahib of the Sunni school of thought. You have the Hanafis, the Hanbalis, you have the Malikis. The Malikis. Their head is Malik ibn Anas. So, one al-Basri studied under him many decades. In the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, Anwan got to a point where he felt like there was no more he was receiving. He reached his limit. It became repetitive. There was not enough knowledge that he was receiving. He's 94. It's a really great lesson for us when to begin. So he decides, let me go to the sixth Imam. Let me go to Ja'far al-Sadiq. I hear a lot about him. Let me go to him and ask him to teach me now. I've learned from all the other scholars. I haven't learned from him yet. So he went to the Imam and he said, Ya Imam, I want to learn. Teach me. And the Imam told him, you were studying under Malik. And you were studying under all those scholars. You don't need me to teach you. You already studied for so long. What do you need me for? It's okay, go back to your teachers. And the Imam left. But you see, Malik was sincerely looking for knowledge. He wanted more. He knew that the knowledge that he had seen was not it. And because he was sincere, his heart opened. And so when he was in the presence of his Imam, he saw the truth. But his Imam told him no. You know how hard that is for the Imam to tell you no? Imagine Imam Mahdi told you no. You came to Imam Mahdi and you said, take me. And he said, those others are your Imams. You follow 1, 2, 3. Go to your Imams. Why are you coming to me now? That's what Imam Sadiq basically told him in a very nice, polite way, how the Ahlul Bayt do it, right? They give you a little smile and they tell you go back. So Malik was hurt. But he was a smart man. So in this pain, he writes, I suffered for weeks. Because now he smelt the fragrance of the Ma'soom and the knowledge that he can give him, different to this book knowledge. And he didn't get it. So he stayed up at night, thinking about it. Because he's a smart man, he went to the shrine of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Prophet to allow him the opportunity to learn under Imam al-Sadiq. After he visited the Prophet's shrine, he went and he knocked on the Imam's door and he waited outside. Because the Imam's servant opened the door and told him the Imam's busy. So he waited outside. He said, it's okay, I'm going to wait as long as it takes until he's not busy. You have to be persistent. You can't try and didn't work out and then you move on. Persistent. So he waited. Then the Imam came and opened the door. Anwan, tafaddal, come inside. Anwan comes inside the house. The first thing that Anwan al-Basri hears from his Imam, the Imam tells him, Ajlis, ghafarallahu lak. Sit down, may Allah forgive you. The Ma'soom just prayed for him. So Anwan says, if this was all I gained from all my sins. But then he sits down, and then Imam Sadiq sits down, and Imam Sadiq looks down. And looks up at him and looks away again. Looks up at him and looks away again. And each glance had a meaning to Anwan. And you know the men of Allah, everything they do has a meaning. Every small thing. They're not random. Sheikh Bahjat, when he would walk in, if you see those old classic videos, he'd walk in, he's always looking down. And then he just stops. And he just looks at one guy. He has some business with him or saw him in a dream or something. And then he looks away. Or in a crowd, there would be 7, 8 people that he looks at. Those would be the people. There would be a meaning behind it. The glances, the eyes are the doorway to the soul. The Imam would be looking at him. And obviously Anwan's quite nervous. And then the Imam tells him, what do you need? And Anwan again says, Uridu al-ilm. I want knowledge, as in I want Allah. So the Imam says, Ya Anwan, because all these years you were studying all the books thinking you were going to receive Allah. He says, Ya Anwan, al-ilm laysa bi kathrat al-ta'allum. Knowledge is not in the amount of strenuous study that you do, and not in the amount of books that you read. The books are only a provocation of your capacity. العلم ليس بكثرة التعلم بل هو نور من الله يقذفه في قلب من يشاء. It is nur from Allah sent into the hearts of whom Allah wills. You understand? Knowledge is nur in the heart. All that we do is we have to want it, be sincere about it, and open the heart to receive that so we can acquire God's names. He says, إِنْ أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ, if you want knowledge, فَاطْلُبْ فِي نَفْسِكَ, then demand within yourself حَقِيقَةَ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ, the true essence of servitude and devotion to God. So you receive knowledge through devotion to God. And there's a lot I can say about that hadith if I had time, because he says فَاطْلُبْ فِي نَفْسِكَ. He didn't say demand devotion. He said demand within yourself, fi nafsika, in your nafs. So the world of knowledge is all inside. Within, when one commits to devotion and the heart opens, then the nur is received. That's why right now these gatherings, it's not about who's speaking. It's about the capacity that you have. And if you're provoked enough and you've worked on your sincerity and you worked on that heart, then you may be someone who will receive that knowledge. There's a lot more I wanted to speak about today, but we're running short on time. And inshallah, I'll continue tomorrow. But before we end, because it is a Thursday night, we will inshallah end with the remembrance of Abu Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi wa ya Mawlai ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi wa ya Mawlai ya Ibn Rasulillah ya Madloom ya Gharib Karbala. When the Imam was finally alone on that morning of Ashura, when everyone had given their lives before him, he left the body of Abbas on the battlefield. And he returned to the tents, wahidan farida. He said his goodbyes to the woman and the children, and he looked towards the enemy, 30,000 warriors waiting for him. He looked at the tents, the empty tents. Ya Abbas, Ya Habib, Ya Akbar, why does no one answer me? هل من ناصر ينصرنا. Years later, when Imam al-Sajjad was walking through the marketplace, he saw a butcher about to slaughter the lamb. And he stopped him and said, "Oh butcher, Will you give the lamb water before it is slaughtered? And the butcher replied, of course, how could I be so cruel not to give this animal water before it is slaughtered? And the Imam replied, قتل الحسين بكربلاء عطشانا. Hussein was slaughtered in Karbala with a thirsty throat and parched lips and a grey beard drenched in blood. When Mukhtar tracked down the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, he caught Harmala and asked Harmala, what was it that he did on that day? And Harmala, threatened with death, began to speak and told him, on that day I released 3 arrows. Where was the first arrow shot to Ya Harmala? Ya Mukhtar, the first arrow that I shot pierced the right eye of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. What did you do with the second arrow? Ya Mukhtar, the second arrow I shot was a poisoned arrow, and it pierced the chest of Hussain. But the third arrow is the arrow that I couldn't get. What did you do with the third arrow? The third arrow, Ya Mukhtar, there was a baby. And the baby's father was asking for water. And I shot the arrow towards the baby's neck, slaughtering it from ear to ear, as it flapped its hands like a slaughtered bird in its father's arms. And Hussein threw his blood into the air, Ya Allah. I can only do this because you are watching me, Ya Rab. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولعن الله الظالمين إلى يوم القيامة. صلى الله.